Now that I have a few games on Nick Fury, I thought it would be fun to talk about how to adjust his Precon deck so that's better. I think this is also very relevant because of the current and legacy environment. So in the current environment, that'll just be the recent releases up to some cutoff point that we don't know currently what that cutoff point will be. But we do know the core box will be part of it because it's necessary to play the game. So for this, I wanted to show how I adjust Nick Fury's Precon deck to be better, but staying on the same theme using just cards from the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. expansion and the core box. Before talking about the changes I made to the deck, I think we should talk about Nick Fury, because understanding his hero identity is going to be important to actually make choices on what cards to include. So on his alter ego side, we have his setup ability that puts a suit in his assault side, and then on the infiltrate ability that says change to stealth suit form. And then on his hero side, he has a 2/2/2 stat line with shield, soldier, and spy traits with these two abilities. One is called Gather Intel, which says after Nick Fury makes a basic thwart, place one threat on your suit from upgrade. So again, that's the suit, that's the suit, that's the suit. And then finally, Forced Interrupt. When you attack, change to Assault Suit form. So you can see that Nick Fury is all about his suit, and he has a decent stat line here of 2/2/2 with 10 hit points. So his suit has two sides to it. The first is Stealth Suit, which says, or I don't know if the first. So it starts in Assault form. I'll start there. So I'll start there. Has an interrupt that says when you attack, remove up to 3 threat from here. And this attack deals 1 additional damage for each threat removed this way. So this works for your events and your basic attack. And it's actually pretty easy to get threat here. And you can see that on the stealth side, it has an ability that says when an enemy would attack you, it schemes instead. Place 1 threat from that activation here instead of on the main scheme if there's 5 or less threat on this card. So the ability on this card will help you gather threat, and it will also help you protect your hit points by causing them to scheme. And hopefully you don't just lose to that, because you're also getting to reduce that and place 1 threat from that activation on the suit instead of on the main scheme. So that can be really useful. So those are the two sides of his suit. Generally, I think you'll want to be in the stealth side often because a lot of his other abilities interact with threat. So some key cards he has that I want to isolate that you can actually build around are going to be his preparations. So here's Intelligence Analysis. I actually got to reveal this card on my channel, which was really cool. It's an interrupt that says when you reveal a treachery, discard Intelligence Analysis, and remove 1 threat from your suit form upgrade. Cancel the effects of that treachery and discard it. So as long as you have threat here, you can remove that threat to cancel that treachery. So that's going to be good. And then EM Shield. When you would take any amount of damage from an attack, discard EM Shield, prevent all of that damage. So that one doesn't actually interact with the suit, but it is a tech preparation card. We have the Eye Patch Camera. When any amount of threat would be placed on the main scheme, discard Eye Patch Camera, place up to 3 of that threat on your suit from upgrade instead. So that can help you get a lot more threat on your suit that you can use for other abilities, and then or increasing your attack, and then also prevents a lot of threat. And then a Secret Agent. After you resolve the ability of a preparation card you control, move 1 threat from the scheme to your suit form upgrade. So you can see based off this card that he really wants to trigger a lot of different preparations. And finally, I wanted to mention the Flying Car. It says it's an aerial tech vehicle that says exhaust Fury's Flying Car and remove 1 threat from your suit form upgrade. Ready Nick Fury. He gains the aerial trait until the end of the round. So this readying your hero is very powerful. So getting this car out is a big deal as well. So, and the rest of his cards, I guess I can briefly go through them. But he has this, which just lets you heal or place a threat on your suit and alter ego. That's pretty good. And then this thwart event that also puts threat on your suit. He has Spray Fire, which is sort of like a minion control where you get to deal 3 damage to the villain and each minion engages that player. And that attack gains Rage. Concentrated Fire, just another attack event here that deals 4 damage to an enemy, and then if you defeat it, you get to choose to place threat on your suit form equal to the enemy's printed scheme or change to stealth suit. The Maria Hill Ally, which just has an interrupt of when Maria Hill thwarts, place the threat on your suit form upgrade. The Watch, which is a resource generator. Actually, I should probably have this one up here because this one's important. Of exhausting it and removing up to 2 threat from your suit form upgrade, and you generate a mental resource for each threat you remove this way. So I'm gonna make sure this watch is up here, because I think this one is also key to his kit. But they're all key to his kit, but the events can just kind of be on their own. And his deck, as you'll see, is really built around preparations. So that's, and then he has 3 copies of this. There's another one in the back. But now let's talk about what his Precon deck actually came with. So he has 3 copies of Practice Plan, which says after you discard a preparation card you control, discard Practice Plan, return that card to your hand from your discard pile, and it's max 1 per player. So that just basically makes you want to trigger preparations so that you can return things to your hand. And then he has the Sky Destroyer, which is a reprint from the Sinister Motives, which, since they're reprinting a lot of cards from that, I'm really hoping that they don't retire that, because I love that box a lot. Anyway, Sky Destroyer here. After you play a shield card, exhaust Sky Destroyer, deal 2 damage to an enemy. We have Leo Fitz and Jenna Simmons. So Gemma Simmons, or both of these, you can reduce the cost to play them by 2 if you have the shield trait, so they actually become really cheap. Gemma lets you exhaust her to generate a mental resource for a tech card, and a lot of these are tech cards, as you'll see. And then Leo lets you search as an alter ego action, you can search your deck for a tech card and add it to your hand. So often that's going to be the car or the watch or one of your preparations. And you can also deck build to add in tech. Both of these cards are really cool. The team up card, Super Spies, team up Maria Hill and Nick Fury. Here action places a total of 3 all-purpose counters and or threat tokens on shield supports and or suit form upgrades. So this is kind of goofy in the sense that I feel like it's just really, really underpowered for Nick, because like essentially what I mean by that is that getting 3 threat on Nick's suit, I don't think is equivalent at all to putting 3 counters on Maria Hill's shield supports that like do a lot. So like almost every single time, if you're playing this with the Maria Hill hero, I'd recommend just putting it on Maria, because it's a lot better there. And then we have the Nick Fury Senior card. Really excited about this ally. Shield Soldier. After Nick Fury Senior enters play, choose one. Remove 3 threat from a scheme, draw 2 cards, or give a shield character a tough status card. At the end of the round, if he's still in play, you discard him. So he's really similar to the old Nick Fury, but they like nerfed it a little bit in the sense that you get to only draw 2 cards instead of 3. But I still think he's very good, and I think he's very cool. So that does it for all the basic cards. So these ones, he's just kind of an ally that's good. Super Spies over here. Sky Destroyer is a little bit random, so I'm going to put that off to the side. And now we can get into the Justice cards. So we got 3 copies of Under Surveillance, which is a very good card that increases the target threat value of the attached scheme by 4, which is a lot. So it's good in all player counts, but it's especially good in solo. Very powerful solo card. And then Prism Dust, another preparation here. After a minion enters play, discard Prism Dust, confuse that minion, and deal 2 damage to it for 1 cost, and it's a preparation tech card. And you can see that goes well with this, and also it's tech for Gemma Simmons and Leo Fitz, so that's really good. We have another preparation called Intelligence, 3 copies of it. After a player is dealt an encounter card, discard Intelligence, look at each encounter card dealt to each player, and the top card of the encounter deck, you may swap any number of those cards. This is really good when you're playing multiplayer and you get dealt a bunch of encounter cards at once. It can save the game if you can avoid some of the worst ones. Then we have 3 copies of Informant, which has an interrupt of when a minion schemes, discard Informant. This activation removes threat instead of placing it. And then we have 3 copies of Global Logistics, where you can exhaust 1 shield card you control, look at the top 4 cards of the player deck or the encounter deck, discard any number of those, and put the others on the top and or bottom of that deck in any order. So this card is very powerful as well, but I don't think there's that many targets for it. So once you have like Leo and Gemma out, Leo, especially while in hero form, is a good target for it. But yeah, Sky Destroyer and Global Logistics are a little out of place. Like spoilers for how I'm going to my recommendations here. Then we have the Quake ally, After minion schemes, Exhaust Quake, deal 2 damage to that minion, and she's Avengers and shield traded. This is especially good for Nick, because remember, the stealth suit is going to cause the minions to scheme, so you can just have her exhausting when they do that to damage them. So she's better with Nick than like any other hero that I can think of. Then Agent Coulson, who after Agent Coulson enters play, search your encounter deck and discard pile for a preparation card and add it to your hand and shuffle your deck, which is very good because you can see we have so many preparation cards here to choose from. So Agent Coulson is extremely good for Nick Fury. So now I want to talk about the things that I would change about this deck and the weaknesses that this deck has. So first off, it's clunky to play. And the reason I say that is because you have 3 copies of all of these different preparations, and they're max 1 per player, which that is really frustrating when you draw a bunch of cards that you can't actually play because you already have this down. So that's a big weakness of this deck. Global Logistics doesn't really have very many targets. So like late game, it's good, but 3 copies of a card that's only going to be good for you late game, not my favorite. You don't need 3 copies of Under Surveillance unless you're playing solo. I think that's still good in solo. And then Sky Destroyer, you're just not really playing all that many shield cards with this deck, so I don't really like that. And the Super Spice card, I think is good if you're playing with the Maria Hill hero, but if you're not, then it's not all that great. And then you'll also notice there are no resource cards in this deck. So it doesn't have, I guess it has this as an economy support and you have the watch, but this deck is very, very low on money. So that's a huge weakness of it. So for the cuts, I'm just going to start by cleaning this up. So the goal of this isn't going to be to make a completely optimized deck. It's just going to be to adjust this deck, keeping the same identity while having it functional and easy to play and fun. So I'm going to start by just cutting all of these cards that are max 1 per player, especially the ones that you can't put under other players' control. So you can see right here, we can cut down and get all the way down to, from 12 cards to 4 cards. So that frees up a lot of deck space for us, and I think it'll immediately makes the deck better. And then Global Logistics, it's okay, but I don't think we need 3 copies. So like the general way that I think about things is if I want to see something in my first hand, then I'll add 3 copies. And if I don't, then I don't add 3 copies. So I'm going to keep this, but cut it down to 2. And then I am going to cut 2 of these. And for the Super Spies, we can keep this or leave it depending on if you're playing with the Maria Hill hero. So this is just going to be like an optional include that I'll just keep over here for now. The Sky Destroyer, I just don't think we have enough shield cards to really justify this. So I'm going to cut the Sky Destroyer as well. And now we have thinned the deck, the Precon deck, and freed up a lot of space for us to add new cards to. So the very first thing and the most important thing that I think we need to do here is add in some resource cards because it's just severely nerfed by not having resource cards. So the 3 double resources, which came in the core set, can go in, and 2 Power of Justices can go in, which I'm going to add a few more targets for it later. Currently, it's working for Quake, Agent Coulson, Under Surveillance, but we have to add a couple more targets to make that worth it. And then finally, to improve the economy, I'm going to add the Helicarrier because it's shield traded, it's from the core box, everyone has it, and it's just really good, especially in multiplayer. So I'm going to free up a little space here. And now we have some more space for cards to add. So another card that I think is going to be really important for Nick is going to be Heroic Intuition. So Heroic Intuition is very good with Nick Fury's Flying Car because you get that ready. So it's going to make it an even better card. So it's already fine. But especially when you get the car out, it's very, very good. So I definitely want this. And then another thing we can do is add 2 copies of Surveillance Team because this will help with threat removal a little bit. It's a good targets for a Power of Justice. And then it also, it's a shield card, which can work with Global Logistics. And I like that. And then we have 2 copies for Justice, because if you're the Justice player, especially in a multiplayer game, you really need some extra thwarting than this deck has, in my opinion. So having 2 copies of this is going to be really good, especially when you're just trying to finish a side scheme. And then for finishing off the whole thing, we have the Daredevil and Mockingbird allies from the core set. So the reason I have these 2 is because Mockingbird is a really good ally. She stuns enemies, which is just pretty powerful. And also, she's shield traded. And then Daredevil is also a good here because he gets a lot of output. And since Nick Fury doesn't need chump blockers so much, he can start pinging a lot of damage and get a lot of value over time. And this deck, I think, is a significant improvement from his Precon while staying on the same identity and being really fun to play, in my opinion. And again, Super Spies, use it if you're playing with a Maria Hill hero, and if you're not, feel free to cut it. And then some of the things that I'd mention, if you have a more expansive card pool, you might want to add some more preparations or some more tech that you have around. So some examples of that could be things like sonic rifle, the plasma pistol, espionage is a good preparation, target acquired is good, counterintelligence is pretty good, spycraft, skilled investigator, spider wound's another shield ally. So again, if you have a larger card pool, there's a lot more things that you can consider, and these are some good suggestions that I would recommend. But this deck will work for literally all of you because everyone should have the core box. So if you have Nick Fury and the core box, you can play this deck, and I think it's very functional and very fun. So I think that just about wraps it up. This deck list will be in the description of the video with a write-up explaining it a little bit. And I hope you like this. I hope you try this out. Let me know how it goes, and I'll see you next time. Stay testy.